You sat at the dinner table, believing today would finally be the moment you were recognized. But suddenly, your mother slid a velvet box across to your sister. Inside was a gleaming key to a brand new car for her graduation. The room erupted in applause, while you froze in silence. When it was your turn, there was no celebration, only a piece of paper demanding rent money. The sting of being overlooked, the weight of unfairness, pressed heavily on your chest. That was the moment you realized you had to walk away and reclaim your worth. Have you ever felt like your efforts were ignored? If this story speaks to you, gently like and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. You left that dinner table with your hands trembling, heart pounding so loudly you thought the entire house could hear it. The velvet box still glimmered in your mind the moment your sister twirled the car keys, her smug smile reflecting all the favoritism you had endured for years. But what cut deeper was not the car. It was the cold paper shoved into your hands, the rent bill that told you, without words, that your sacrifices meant nothing. You walked away, the scrape of your chair echoing like thunder, while no one followed you. No apology, no hesitation, only silence and the mocking shine of that new car in the driveway as you grabbed your bag and left. At your best friend Alyssa's apartment, you collapsed onto her couch, the tears you had held back finally brimming. She poured you coffee, sat beside you, and let you breathe in the stillness. But that night, your mind would not rest. Every bill you had paid, every late shift you had worked, every grocery bag you had carried home when your father's business collapsed, all of it rushed back. You remembered covering your sister's textbooks, helping your mother with her car repairs, and sorting your father's endless paperwork. You had been the one who kept the family afloat. And what did you get in return? A rent bill, as if your devotion had been nothing but a debt to them. The next morning, the anger sharpened into something else. Suspicion. You remembered old bank statements you had once seen when helping your father with his real estate accounts. The timing, the numbers, they had nagged at you back then, but you brushed them aside, trusting that your family wouldn't deceive you. Now you weren't so sure. You logged into the joint account, your fingers trembling but your mind resolute. And then you saw it. The withdrawals. The first was $50,000, perfectly aligned with the year your sister started Yale. Another $20,000 the year after. Smaller amounts that added up to nearly $200,000, all tied to her tuition, her trips, her luxuries. Your stomach twisted. This wasn't favoritism. This was theft, your future siphoned away, disguised as love for another. The betrayal cut deeper than any rent bill. It was as if your family had erased your existence, rewriting the story so that only your sister mattered. In that moment, you knew you couldn't stay silent. You picked up the phone and dialed a number you had buried in memory. James Bennett, your grandfather's old financial advisor. You remembered meeting him once as a child, his calm eyes behind glasses, his voice steady. He answered, and when you introduced yourself, he paused as if he had been waiting for this very call. Your grandfather left you a trust fund, close quote, he said softly. $200,000, meant for your education and your future. Your father was named trustee. Your breath caught. A trust fund for you. And then the crushing weight of the truth settled in. Those withdrawals you had seen, they were never meant for your sister. They were yours. Money your grandfather had carefully set aside so you could build a life, stolen right out of your hands by the very people who should have protected you. James promised to send you proof, a letter in your grandfather's handwriting, account statements, everything. When the email arrived, you opened it with trembling fingers. The words blurred as tears filled your eyes. To my dearest, this trust is for your dreams. Don't let anyone take it from you. You leaned back, the weight of years pressing down. Your grandfather had foreseen it, your father's favoritism, your mother's silence, your sister's endless rewards. He had tried to shield you. But his shield had been broken, not by strangers, but by your own blood. Alyssa walked in, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. She took one look at you and knew something was wrong. You showed her the letter. Her gasp mirrored the storm inside you. He took what was yours, close quote, she whispered. Every cent of it. You nodded, your voice steady now. This isn't over. I will make him pay it back. That was the moment your story shifted. You were no longer the overlooked child, the dutiful sibling who stayed quiet. You were someone who had been wronged, and you would fight back. In the days that followed, you pored over bank statements, aligning every withdrawal with your sister's milestones, her new laptop, her study abroad in Paris, her spring break in Cancun. Each discovery was another strike of betrayal. Each receipt a scar. But also, each piece of evidence was a weapon. James sent you more documents, including a letter outlining your grandfather's intent. Every detail proved the same thing. This money had been yours all along. It was supposed to be the foundation for your dreams, not the pedestal for someone else's success. The rage inside you turned into determination. You weren't going to remain the silent supporter. You weren't going to keep paying the price for everyone else's comfort. That afternoon, you searched for a lawyer. The name that stood out was Stephen Thomas Walsh, a trust and estate specialist with a reputation for being relentless. His website promised to hold those in power accountable, and the reviews called him sharp, unyielding. That was exactly what you needed. When you walked into his office, folder of documents in your hand, your heart pounded, but your hands were steady. You told him everything about the trust, the withdrawals, the betrayal. He flipped through the evidence, his expression grave. "This is a clear violation," he said. "Your father breached his duty as trustee. We can demand restitution, even penalties." For the first time, hope surged within you. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about dignity. About reclaiming the future that had been taken from you. Stephen explained the process. File a lawsuit, demand a full accounting of the trust, present the evidence in court. He warned it would not be quick, but he assured you that your case was strong. You nodded, determination lighting your eyes. "Let's do it," you said. Back at Alyssa's, you threw yourself into work, grounding yourself in the pieces of life you still controlled. You focused on your online design course, creating logos and mock-ups late into the night. Each project was a reminder that you still had a future worth building. But your phone buzzed constantly, calls from your mother, your father, even your sister. You silenced them all. They didn't deserve your answers. The weight of the betrayal still lingered, but now it was tempered by resolve. You weren't just the child who received a bill for rent while your sister received a car. You were the one who had uncovered the truth, who had found the courage to fight back. And this was only the beginning of your revenge story. Have you ever been the one who gave everything, only to be left with nothing? If you've ever felt overlooked, you know the fire it ignites. If this story speaks to you, consider tapping like and subscribe, not as a favor, but as a way to stand with stories that refuse to stay silent. 3 weeks later, you found yourself sitting in a cold courtroom, your hands clasped tightly in your lap. The wooden panels on the walls reflected the harsh fluorescent lights above, but none of it mattered. Your focus was on the stack of documents in your bag, every statement, every letter, every piece of proof you had gathered. You weren't just here for money. You were here for the truth. Across the aisle, your father sat stiff in his suit, his lawyer whispering in his ear. Your mother beside him twisted her hands, her eyes darting toward you with silent pleas. Your sister wasn't even present, too busy enjoying the life funded by what should have been yours. That absence cut deeper than any words could. She hadn't even cared enough to witness the storm she had helped create. Your lawyer, Stephen, rose and addressed the judge with confidence. His voice carried the weight of your pain, but wrapped it in the precision of law. "Your Honor," he began, "my client was the sole beneficiary of a $200,000 trust established by her grandfather. Her father, the appointed trustee, diverted these funds for purposes that did not serve her interests. This was not an oversight. It was deliberate. It was a breach of trust." He laid out the documents one by one. Bank withdrawals aligned perfectly with your sister's tuition, her trips abroad, her car payments. Each piece of paper felt like another strike of betrayal, but now they were no longer your private wounds, they were evidence, undeniable and irrefutable. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, leaned forward, scanning each sheet carefully. Your father's lawyer rose, claiming the funds had been used for family needs, arguing that everything was done to keep the household stable. But Stephen countered swiftly. He produced an email from your father, requesting funds specifically for your sister's education and leisure. The judge's brows furrowed. The room grew quiet. When your father finally took the stand, he straightened his tie and spoke calmly, almost rehearsed. "I did what I thought was best for both of my daughters. The trust was family money. I used it to keep us afloat." But Stephen's questions cut through the rehearsed lines like a blade. "Did your daughter consent to these withdrawals?" "No," your father admitted after a pause. "Did you inform her of these transactions as required by law?" Again. Silence, then a strained no. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The judge's pen scratched against her notepad. Each word of his admission echoed louder than a shout. Your mother's voice broke the silence, trembling. "Please, she's our daughter. We didn't mean to hurt her." Her eyes glistened, her voice soft. "But you didn't look at her. You had heard enough apologies too late, too hollow." The judge leaned back, her expression firm. This was not an act of necessity. This was a violation of fiduciary duty. The trust was created for one purpose: to secure this young woman's future. That purpose was ignored. And with that, the gavel struck. The ruling was clear. Full restitution of $200,000, plus an additional $25,000 in punitive damages, and coverage of all legal fees. Your father's face turned pale. Your mother gasped, clutching his arm. But you sat steady, your heartbeat racing yet calm. Years of being overlooked, silenced, and dismissed now replaced with a quiet triumph. Outside the courtroom, your mother tried to reach for your hand. "We're still family," she whispered. But you stepped back, your voice steady. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. And with that, you walked past them, head high, the courthouse doors swinging shut behind you. Alyssa was waiting, her grin wide when she saw you. You nailed it, didn't you? Close quote, she said, hugging you tightly. They're paying every cent. You nodded, a small smile breaking through the storm. For the first time in years, you felt the weight lift from your shoulders. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming your dignity, proving to yourself that you were worth fighting for. Days turned into weeks as you began to rebuild. You signed a lease for your own apartment, a modest one-bedroom with a balcony overlooking the city. The walls were bare, but they carried the promise of freedom. You painted them a soft grey, each stroke a declaration of independence. Alyssa helped you unpack boxes, laughing as she carried the heavy ones. This place already feels like yours, close quote, she said, setting a lamp on the floor. And she was right. Your freelance design work began to grow. Projects flowed in, a logo for a bakery, a poster for a coffee shop, branding for a non-profit. Every line you drew, every concept you built, felt like another brick in the foundation of your new life. You weren't just working. You were building a future that no one could steal. Still, your phone buzzed. Calls from your parents, your sister, numbers you recognized and ignored. Sometimes, a part of you wondered what they wanted to say. But then you remember the years when they could have chosen you, when they could have stood beside you. They hadn't. And you didn't owe them another chance. On your birthday, Alyssa surprised you with a small gathering in your apartment. String lights glowed, laughter filled the air, and a cake from your new client's bakery carried your name in elegant script. For the first time, you looked around a room and felt that everyone there had chosen you not out of obligation, but out of care. Later that night, alone on your balcony, you unfolded your grandfather's letter again. Don't let anyone take it from you, close quote, he had written. You whispered the words, your new apartment smelled faintly of fresh paint and possibility. The grey walls you brushed yourself carried a sense of calm, a stark contrast to the suffocating house you had left behind. Boxes still lined the hallway, half unpacked, but you didn't mind. They were more than cardboard and tape. They were symbols of freedom, pieces of a new life waiting to be arranged. Alyssa visited often, bringing food or small gifts she claimed your place needed: a rug for the living room, a set of mugs, a tiny potted plant that now sat on your windowsill. She teased you, saying the plant looked sturdier than you did on your first night here. You laughed, but deep down, you knew she was right. That night, you had walked away broken. Now, you were standing taller, your roots beginning to spread. Work became more than just a distraction. It was a lifeline. Your freelance design projects multiplied. The bakery you had helped rebrand, Sweet Haven, flourished with a fresh identity. Customers noticed the new menus and website, praising the warmth they conveyed. Kristen, the owner, called you her secret weapon. Soon, word spread. A coffee shop reached out for a poster. A non-profit needed a new logo. A yoga studio wanted a full branding package. Each project was a reminder. Your talent was real, and it was yours alone. Nights once filled with tension were now filled with glowing screens, sketches scattered across your desk, and the quiet hum of determination. You stayed up late, not because you were forced to hold your family together, but because you were building something of your own. Every email from a satisfied client, every payment deposited into your account, felt like a small victory against the years when you were invisible. But the past lingered like a shadow. Your phone buzzed constantly, at first calls from your mother, sharp voicemails from your father, even short messages from your sister that carried no apology, only expectation. You ignored them all. At first, you counted the calls. 10 from your mother in a day. 15 from your father. Then 35 in total. You stopped counting. You stopped listening. Their voices no longer had power over you. When the silence finally came, it was almost unsettling. Days would pass with no calls, no messages. But then, out of nowhere, your inbox would flash with an email from your mother, pleading for one last chance to explain. You deleted it unopened. They had years to choose you, to see you, to stand beside you. They didn't get to rewrite the story now. Meanwhile, your circle grew wider. Kristen wasn't just a client anymore, she became a friend, someone who shared coffee and laughter with you after long workdays. She told you stories of her first failed bread, of the chaos of running a bakery, of the nights she had almost given up. You listened, realizing you weren't alone in carrying heavy burdens. Alyssa remained your anchor. She dragged you to art shows, rooftop dinners, and late-night walks through the city. She celebrated every small win with you, every new client, every finished project, every step toward independence. One evening, she raised her glass to you on your balcony, the city lights glowing behind her. "You're writing a new story," close quote, she said. You clinked your glass with hers, smiling. She was right. Months passed, and the apartment transformed. A desk in the corner became a proper workspace, complete with a mood board pinned with colors, sketches, and quotes that inspired you. A bookshelf filled with design books leaned against the wall. The potted plant on your windowsill grew taller, its leaves stretching toward the sunlight. You were growing too, in ways you hadn't thought possible. Your father's world, you heard, was collapsing. Through whispers in the community, you learned that his real estate business was unraveling. Clients had pulled away after news of the lawsuit spread. No one wanted to trust a man who had stolen from his own child. Deals crumbled, offices closed, his reputation eroded piece by piece. For a brief second, pity flickered in you. But it didn't last. He had made his choices. This was his consequence. Your sister had moved to another city, living in a cramped studio far from the glitter of her college years and her shiny car. Whether she knew the truth or not, you didn't care. Her life was hers now, and yours was no longer tied to it. One evening, Alyssa brought over takeout, and the two of you spread sketches across your balcony table. You were brainstorming a mural for a community center, something bright and hopeful. The air was warm, filled with laughter and the sound of pens scratching across paper. She paused, looking at you. "Do you ever think about them?" Close quote, she asked. "Sometimes," close quote, you admitted, shading in a corner of your sketch. "But not the way I used to. They're not my story anymore." She smiled softly, nodding. "You were writing a better one." And she was right. Your birthday came again, this time celebrated in a way you had never imagined. Your apartment glowed with string lights, filled with laughter, music, and the smell of cake from Kristen's bakery. Friends gathered not out of obligation, but out of choice. They told stories, clinked glasses, and filled your space with warmth. You looked around, cheeks aching from smiling, and realized this was family too. A chosen family, bound not by blood but by love and support. Later that night, after the last guest left and the laughter faded into quiet, you sat alone with a letter. Your grandfather's handwriting filled the page, his words steady. "You are enough. Don't let anyone take it from you." You traced the letters with your fingers, tears blurring your vision not of sorrow, but of gratitude. He had believed in you long before you had believed in yourself. You folded the letter gently and placed it back in its drawer. Outside, the city lights shimmered, steady and bright. Your balcony plant rustled softly in the breeze, its leaves stronger than ever. You leaned back in your chair, the night air cool against your skin, and let yourself breathe. The storm that once defined you was gone. In its place stood something steadier. Resilience. You had cut ties, walked away, fought for justice, and rebuilt from the ground up. The scars remained, but they no longer burned. They were reminders not of what you lost, but of what you gained. And as the dawn began to rise, casting soft light across your apartment, you knew this truth with absolute certainty. You had chosen yourself. And it was the right choice. Weeks turned into months, and months began to weave into the rhythm of a new life. Your apartment no longer felt like a temporary refuge but a true home. The walls that once echoed with emptiness now held warmth, decorated with photos of friends, sketches from your projects, and small tokens from moments you wanted to remember. The plant Alyssa had brought grew tall, its leaves stretching wide like proof that even fragile beginnings could thrive when given care. Your freelance work expanded beyond what you had first imagined. The bakery project had led to the coffee shop, then the non-profit, then more. Soon, you weren't just working with local businesses, you were taking on clients from other cities. Emails flooded your inbox. Design requests for websites, branding packages for startups, campaigns for community events. Every project felt like another affirmation that you were carving out a space in the world that was truly yours. Late nights at your desk no longer felt like a burden. Instead, they were a joy. Your small office corner transformed into a creative hub, 2 monitors glowing, sketch pads stacked neatly, inspiration boards filled with color swatches and typography samples. You caught yourself smiling in the middle of work, realizing you were no longer living to meet someone else's expectations. This was yours. This was the life your grandfather had envisioned when he wrote that letter. Your phone, once a constant reminder of unfinished pain, fell silent. The calls had stopped. The last email from your mother had arrived weeks earlier, pleading for just one chance to talk. You had deleted it without hesitation. Since then, nothing. No more demands, no more guilt. Just quiet. And in that quiet, you found peace. Occasionally, you heard whispers about your family. A client mentioned in passing that your father's reputation was gone, that no one in Hartford trusted him anymore. His once flourishing business had collapsed under the weight of lost deals and broken credibility. You didn't gloat. You didn't celebrate. You simply accepted it. His downfall wasn't your victory, it was the natural consequence of his choices. Your sister's name surfaced once through a mutual acquaintance. She was working long hours in a cramped city apartment, no car, no luxuries. A far cry from the life she once paraded with pride. You didn't ask for details. Her path was her own now, just as yours was yours. Whatever she was facing, it no longer defined you. One evening, Alyssa came over with a sketchbook, her excitement spilling out as she described a mural project for a community center. You both spread papers across the table, brainstorming ideas under the soft glow of your string lights. At one point, she paused and studied you. "You're different," she said with a smile. "Lighter. Like the weight finally lifted." You nodded. "Because it has." The mural took shape, vibrant colors representing resilience, growth, and hope. Painting it alongside Alyssa and volunteers from the community felt like an echo of your own journey. Each brushstroke was symbolic. Of pain transformed into beauty, of scars reshaped into strength. Children laughed as they dipped brushes into paint, and neighbors cheered as the mural came alive. Watching it unfold, you realized you had turned your hurt into something that inspired others. When the mural was finished, you stood back and looked at it in awe. Bright colors stretched across the wall, a story told without words. People stopped to admire it, taking photos, smiling as they passed. For you, it wasn't just art. It was a mirror of your journey, proof that you had not only survived but thrived. As your career flourished, so did your sense of belonging. Your circle grew with people who valued you not for what you could give them, but for who you were. Clients became friends, friends became chosen family. Your apartment, once quiet and lonely, buzzed with dinners, laughter, and celebrations. On weekends, you and Alyssa explored new neighborhoods, found hidden cafes, and planned trips you once thought you'd never afford. Yet, in quieter moments, you still returned to your grandfather's letter. You kept it in a drawer by your bed, pulling it out on nights when the past whispered too loudly. Each time you read his words, "You are enough. Don't let anyone take it from you," you felt steadier. He had believed in you long before you had learned to believe in yourself. And now, you carried that belief into every decision, every project, every step forward. On the anniversary of the court ruling, you stood on your balcony, looking out at the city lights. The cool breeze brushed your skin, and you thought back to that night at the dinner table when everything had shattered. You remembered the velvet box, the car keys, the rent bill. You remembered walking away, not knowing where you would land. And now, standing there with your own life built from the ground up, you felt nothing but pride. You hadn't just reclaimed money. You had reclaimed dignity, independence, and self-worth. You had broken free from a cycle that would have swallowed you whole. Sometimes, you wondered if your family ever thought of you. If your mother regretted her silence. If your father regretted his choices. If your sister ever realized the cost of her comforts. But those were fleeting thoughts, dissolving as quickly as they came. Their story no longer controlled yours. Your story was no longer about betrayal. It was about resilience. And as you stood there, the city humming below, you knew this with clarity. Walking away had been the hardest choice you ever made. But it had also been the right one. Standing on your balcony, you breathed in the night air and felt a calm you hadn't known in years. The lights of the city blinked steadily, like reminders that life moves forward, no matter how heavy the past once was. You had walked away from betrayal, faced the truth in a courtroom, and built a new life with your own hands. What once felt like the end had become the beginning of everything you had always deserved. The scars of yesterday were still there, but they no longer weighed you down. They were part of your story, chapters that shaped your resilience, not your defeat. You realized that true victory was never about revenge itself, but about reclaiming dignity, finding peace, and finally living on your own terms. Your grandfather's words echoed softly. You are enough. And now, for the first time, you truly believed them. If this journey made you pause and reflect,